It's the internet. Yeah, it's just a browser. Okay. So Vertex Chameleon, it just takes what Maya already has, which is the ability to color objects on a vertex level, and it makes it really easy to use. Um, in a way, it's not it's not doing anything different than what Maya already has built in. So if you color something with Vertex Chameleon here, you can send it to any other place that has Maya, and it's going to work the same. It'll look exactly the same. It doesn't need the plugin to understand the colors that you've put in. I'm going to show, I told you guys I was going to show some stuff. I'm going to show that at the end after I go through this because I have to turn off the recording to show it. But I'll basically just show you the basics of using the program. The very first thing that we'll do is make a shelf button. I think I saw somebody making one already, but you have it built, a built-in feature in here. If you open up Vertex Chameleon and you go to settings, there's a button that says add to shelf. By default, it's going to put it on your polygons menu. It just gives you this little lizard guy, and it's just a really convenient way of opening it. If you forget or you don't have that button or whatever, you need to open it later, you can always source it by going to your mel tab and making like putting in the code RH_VCP. It'll do the same exact thing. Once you get this button, you can open it up, and the first thing that you should know about Vertex Chameleon and using it is that you can't apply a color with it. You have to use Maya's tools to do that. You can do that in a couple of different ways. There's a Maya tool tab right here that will let you go apply color, and you can apply color to an object. In this case, I just have a cube. I'll make it, I don't know, I'll make it a sphere. Okay. Oh wait, did you guys know that like how to make a sphere that's all quads? It's really simple. If you make a cube and you smooth it twice, it's a sphere, but it doesn't have triangles on the top. Like a regular sphere looks like this. Uh, so it's got like triangles on the top of it. But if you just smooth the cube twice, you get the sphere. I didn't learn that till like, I don't know, it took me a while to figure that out. And once I started using that, it saved a lot of time if you do need a quad workflow. For this, for everything that I'm going to show you today, you don't really need good topology. It doesn't really matter what your topology looks like. Okay, so I got these objects. The first thing you want to do before you color them with Vert Chameleon is you have to apply a color within Maya. So just click on them and go apply color. It's going to apply whatever color you last used, or it might even make them black. But if you go to the option box for apply color, there you can see what the default color is, and you can maybe adjust it to something that makes sense to you. I like to make the default color like special effects green. That way I can tell if I like haven't colored it yet, but I can tell that it does have a color applied to it. From there, we have these colored objects, and they have Maya default lighting on them. I hate Maya default lighting. I think it looks really, really bad. I think most people agree. The entire time you're working with these scenes, whether it's modeling a set or working on a character, you're looking at this really bad version of the lighting. Like it's super unappealing. So what I like doing is I get some of the volume implied with the way that it's colored, and by pressing 7, your scene's looking for lights, and it's not finding any lights, so it goes to color instead. It goes just to flat color. My final animations are all going to be play blasted. And so everything we do is about optimizing the way the viewport looks to get it like that cartoon kind of appealing style without having to go through a rendering method like surface shaders or whatever. It's just like a fast and easy way of doing it. So now that we have these objects flat shaded, it gets kind of confusing as to like what the forms are. Like this kind of looks like it's an ovoid, but then you rotate up and you're like, oh, it's a torus. So you can apply the color on these objects, or the form rather, by selecting the faces or selecting the verts, and not on the entire thing, just on part of it. Let's say like this top half of it. And now in Vertex Chameleon in the Apply tab, you pick a color. If you hit selection, it picks the color that you have selected. You can adjust its hue, saturation, and everything. right off the bat, you'll see it's really easy to play with the colors and get a color picked. I mean, it's much more difficult to do without these tools in Maya. Then you replace RGBA to apply it to the color, to the model. So now it's a little bit easier to see what this shape is. You can always go back if you're roughing something out to default shading until the thing has enough color information for you to be able to tell what it is. Another way that you can imply volume on this is by baking ambient occlusion into it. And so I said I was going to explain what ambient occlusion is. Like I said, Pocoyo is literally flat color like this with an ambient occlusion pass on top of it. Ambient occlusion looks like shadows. It looks like light information, but it's not. What it is it's taking the distances of all of the vertices in the scene and applying an algorithm that says how close is this vert to the next vert. It takes that information and abuses it to make a volume on that shape. That's totally just based on distances. So like if something's really far away, it won't get ambient occlusion information from that other object. The closer it gets, the more the interior side of the two objects will get darker. So the way, I'll show you an example. So we did last class, I just like searched ambient occlusion on Google. And this is, I think this is the example I looked at before. It's really cool looking. I mean, this isn't really doing it justice, these images. This one kind of does. But basically, you can have something that, you can just take a jumble of polygons and render a mental ray ambient occlusion pass, and it looks beautiful. It's a really cool looking way to render stuff. In other Calarts films that I felt like looked pretty good, like Mike Piazza's film and Teresa Latsko's film, their film was pretty much, there was lighting. There was lighting. I mean, Teresa spent a really long time getting nice lighting on that. But if you take all the lighting away, you get flat color and an ambient occlusion pass. So you get a really, and that looked awesome. I mean, you could stop there if you want to. And like I said, that's exactly what Pocoyo does. They only use lights when it's absolutely necessary for the story. I mean, you can get shadows and then composite this on top of that. So eventually what I'm going to show you at the end, you'll have the option to render ambient occlusion with mental ray and then composite it with your play blast. So you get everything in real time. But the problem with these type of mental ray ambient occlusion renders is at a minimum they're going to take 3 minutes, maybe 2 minutes. I've seen some people, they want enough detail and resolution in their ambient occlusion pass that it takes 10 minutes. So you're talking about 10-minute per frame renders just for one pass. It's a really, really expensive pass. So you're going to end up spending a lot of time just waiting for your render. And in our productions, like a lot of times I'm only spending like 6 months on a film. And so 2 days where I'm just rendering is a really big deal. So getting rid of that is important to me. And that's what I do. I have ambient occlusion in my films, but I'm doing it in real time. So I just added this little floor plane, and again, to make it editable with color, you have to apply a color to it first. And then I'm gonna go to the Adjust tab now and just bring its value down. So all these sliders here, they're very sensitive sliders that will change your colors for whether you have a vertex selected, an object, or a face. It's gonna adjust that in real time. So you can see, what you're doing. Like if I wanted to, let's say I wanted this to have kind of like a bounced light. I'm going to increase the resolution on this mesh. I mean, that's terrible, but just pretend you don't see that. All these extra edge loops here. It's like crazy, crazy high res. Won't worry about it. If I select both of these together, and I go to my Apply tab, and I hit Selection, I'm getting the average of these two values. It looks like it's just the green, but I'm actually getting the green plus this green plus this. Well, not plus, it's not adding, it's averaging them. So now if I go in here and I apply to a face selection, just in a random area that I'm making bigger, if I replace this, it's going to kind of have a bounced light effect. You can almost imagine this is what the color of that light might be if this was luminous, like if this was a glowing thing, if it was fluorescent light instead of just a regular torus. That's a way to get really intelligent lighting choices without really knowing that much about color. Like you can make masterful painting choices and you maybe barely know anything about painting, this is a really fast way of doing that. And in a similar way, you can make professional looking gradients. Like Leo Habaiko would probably hate this. Like you click these two, selection, click here, replace, and now you have the average of the two. If you did this over an entire surface, you'll get a really nice gradient. If you did it with on edges, like this, if I click here, selection, and then replace this on an edge level, it does a smooth gradient. That looks like it's banded, and it is banded, but you can correct that with the viewport 2.0 stuff that I'm going to show you later. After that, you might want to have, like I said, ambient occlusion. There's a tab here at the bottom called mental ray baking that you'll have to open up. So I'm going to close these just so mine looks like yours. If you go down to mental ray baking and click this, you get this ambient occlusion option. You can replace the object's color with ambient occlusion information, or you can multiply it. If you don't have any other objects in the scene, it's going to calculate the ambient occlusion based on itself. And that's it. Right now, I have a plane here, and this plane is there so I can use it to drive the information on this. So when I bake the ambient occlusion onto this object, it's going to be darker on the bottom with a fall off towards the top, and also darker in the interior because these verts are closer to these verts. So it's just going to kind of create almost like a shadow across the entire thing. So right off the bat, like, oh, I didn't tell you guys, but I changed these values. Let me go back. So I think by default it's like, can you guys tell me what your the values are by default? 64 and 0? Cool. So if I do that, I'm going to get a much dirtier looking ambient occlusion pass. I don't know if you can see it on the projector or not, but it's got like a bumpiness. It's sort of, it's just not as nice, basically. This has a high enough resolution to give me a nice ambient occlusion pass, and it doesn't matter if you up the rays because it just does the calculation one time. So I just bumped this all the way up and put this at 5. If you're looking for like maybe a lower poly thing and it's like you want it to be obvious that it's low poly, you could leave that value down, but I like to turn it up. So I got this object that's got information for volume based only on color. This has nothing to do with anything in real time. And to prove that, like if I rotate this upside down, you'll see that this doesn't make sense anymore. Like it still looks pretty cool, but the shadow from the ambient occlusion isn't calculating in real time, so it's just going to sit on top or bottom of the thing. So I use this process for backgrounds mostly, for like props, things that aren't going to move, which is most of the scene usually. The characters, if you baked ambient occlusion into your characters and their arms are down, the inside of their arm is going to be really dark. So now when they lift that arm over their head, it might not make any sense. I think it's okay to bake ambient occlusion into your character as long as you make sure everything's nice and far apart. It actually does add a little just a nice volumetric quality to all the forms. But you got to do it in a way to where it doesn't feel too much like a shadow, or it'll be really strange when that stuff is like rotating in space. After that, okay, so the other thing, and this is what Sang asked at last class, he said, well, what if I want to do it in real time? I want those shadows to be generated. I'm going to show that when I get into viewport 2.0. There's a feature that actually allows you to render a pretty inexpensive, well, it's real time, totally inexpensive ambient occlusion pass just while you're working. So you can literally see an AO pass calculated in real time over top of whatever you're doing. When I show the viewport 2.0 stuff, I want to point out that this doesn't just apply to the stuff that I'm doing and the Adventure Time stuff or whatever. This applies to any scene you're working on because you can just make it look better. I mean, if I'm animating another person's shot, I bring up this in display, heads-up display. So this could be a film that's not in my style at all. Like if I'm freelancing on something just animating, I always turn frame rate on. And if you pop viewport 2.0 on, you look at your frame rate. If you play back and you're still getting 24 frames a second with viewport 2.0, I don't understand why you wouldn't want all the features that it gives you. It gives you anti-aliasing, like I said, ambient occlusion. It gamma corrects the scene. So you're working on something that looks appealing, that looks a lot like the final render. And I saw a first year using it actually. It was like I was like, who told you about this? He's just like, I don't know, it's just what I like to do. A lot of people like working with it turned on. You don't have to think of it as a way to make your film necessarily. This can just be a way to make your scene look really good while you're animating, and so you don't feel like there's a big separation between what you're doing and what it's going to look like in the end. Um, but I'm going to go over that after this. I'm just going to pull up these notes real quick. So the first thing I talked about is applying color and adjusting color. I showed you that you can apply color to vertices and to faces. If I wanted to get a very specific color, I use this a ton. You go to apply, you click here, and then there's 4 tabs. So what I did is I clicked on the color itself. It opens up a little menu in which you can go to the image tab. In the image tab, you have to do this over and over again each time. I've probably done this 1,000 times. I clicked on this little thing, but when you click load, it gives you the opportunity to open an image. This could be your viz dev or whatever. This could even be an image from another scene in Maya that you've already rendered. Usually it's viz dev. Usually it's like a really nice painting that that you did before the project or whatever, and you want that specific color. So you open it up and you get the image here. You can click anywhere, but what you do, you click and hold. When you click and hold, now it gives you a much more specific control over where the crosshairs are, and you can just get an exact pixel. This particular image isn't the best example because I colored it with Vertex Chameleon, so it's all flat. Like there's not much value and tone variation in this. But if there was, you could go in like this and just slowly, specifically pick a very, very specific pixel. At first I thought this crosshair thing was annoying, but then I realized it helps you have good aim, basically. Once you get the color that you want, hit done, and it hops into here. You can apply it directly like this by hitting replace. Now it's flat shaded again. But if you wanted to keep your actual information, you go to this blend color. You can make it an add. If I wanted to add light based on this color that I've picked from my image, I just increase the apply, and I'm lighting this object based on that color. If I want to just replace it straight up, I can do it 50%. So I've just added that color 50%, and you can see how like really quickly you're able to like make pretty intelligent lighting choices. Like you can push and pull stuff around. I mean, like the ambient occlusion that's on there before was kind of muddy because I just multiplied it on there. It wasn't a very specific color at all. And now since I've replaced the thing with 50% of this yellow, the ambient occlusion's got like more of an orange quality to it. It's like it just looks like it took more care to create. Now, if you were doing that in compositing, you could just adjust the color of your ambient occlusion in After Effects. But then you're doing that to the entire image, and you might not want that. You might want different objects to have different colors, different bounce light, and this gives you a lot of control. I'm just going to do the same thing to this. So there's one thing that you really got to worry about when you're applying colors. You can't apply a color to 2 instances of the same object. So do you guys use instances? Do you know about instances? Anybody? Kind of know what they are? Well, they're really helpful. It's like if I wanted to, I go to Edit, Duplicate, Special. So let's say the way that I usually use this is a sidetrack, but I think it's really, really helpful for modeling, especially character modeling. I go to Instance and Duplicate Special, and then Apply. Now I have an instance of this object. I'm going to undo what I did because I want to show you a specific trick. This is something that I use for character modeling a lot. Okay, so if this is zeroed out on the grid and you delete this half of it, you guys might know this already, but I'm just going to show you anyway. I'm making sure that the pivot point of the object is dead center, and I delete half of it. Then Command-Shift-D does duplicate special. It's the same as going to Edit, Duplicate Special. I'm scaling the object that I just created, which is an instance, in -X. So now I have an instance, which means that if I move a vert here, it moves it on the other side. So you could do really complicated character modeling, and it'll apply to either side of your mesh. In my opinion, it's a lot, well, not in my opinion. It's better than reflection, because if I apply an edge loop to one object, it's going to apply it to both objects. So, I mean, of course, if you applied an edge loop with symmetry this way, it's going to do it. But with reflection, it wouldn't mirror this edge loop. But if you work this way, it does. So you can do really complicated stuff on one side of the model, and it'll reflect. You just have to make sure you're not selecting any of these verts, because it'll open up a seam like that. But that's a cool way of working. Anyway, what the reason I mentioned instances, if you grab both of these and adjust the value of both of them at the same time, it will crash Maya. It's like 100%. I just showed somebody the other day, and it was, well, Teresa. She's like, "Are you sure? Let's see it." Like, she was really curious, and it didn't at first, and then I just slid it a little bit more, and it did it. It's just like one of the surest ways to crash Maya that I've ever found. So don't do that. But that's the only known bug that I found with it. In previous versions of Maya, the color picker didn't work in Vertex Chameleon, but in this one it does. So you can even color pick from out here, which is awesome. That's new to me. I haven't used that. So you know how I showed you could grab an image and load it in and then color pick from that? Well, I'm just realizing now that I'm talking about it that you may as well just put it to the side of your Maya file and just grab with a color picker. It'd be faster. I just don't do that because this used to be bugged. It didn't work. Okay. Yeah, the way you do that is you select both of these. You can go to modify, convert instance to object, or you can just combine them. If you go to combine the two objects and then you select these verts, you'll notice that since I've combined it, they're not merged. And then you just grab vertex, do a global merge vertices, and make sure the value is not too high. I usually make it like 0, 0, 1. And since the verts are in the exact same spot, they'll become 1. That's how you do it once you're finished with it. It's like a last step kind of thing. I mean, if you're not moving it and deforming it and stuff, you don't have to do that. I've taken things and done final renders with them. As long as the verts are in the exact same spot, they'll render fine. Like, even if there's an invisible seam there and you can split them apart, it's okay to render things like that. In my opinion, I don't know. Some people might disagree with me for different productions. It really depends on what you're working on. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to show is random components. So I'm going to select all the faces for this, and I'm going to go to this tab right here, Apply Random Components. Apply Random Components, if you go through here, you got red, green, blue, alpha, hues. Oh, I was going to show you transparency really quick. If I want to make an object transparent, so you can do some really cool stuff. Like you can fake water and do all kinds of neat stuff. Like you do have transparency as part of this. So that looks like a glow. Like you know, for a lot of stuff that I've done, you know, if I want like the light to be visible, they call it light fog in Maya. But if you want the rays to be visible, it's a very cartoony choice. It's not something you'd ever see in a realistically lit project. You could just model the shapes of those rays and then make them transparent, and it looks pretty cool. But applying random components, I'll do them to the vertices. So I select all these verts. I'm a little scared that this is so high poly that it'll mess up. I don't think it will. It'll be a good test. I'll just do it anyway. And I go to apply random components. Right now it's got value randomness of 0.2, which is pretty high. The values are very sensitive. I think 1 means 100%. So usually I would do something like 0.08 if you just wanted a subtle variation on the entire thing. But I'll just make this really crazy. We'll go hue randomness is high, and then the saturation randomness is high. So we'll just get like a super random. And then again, you can make it a multiply different Slayer, whatever you want. But I'll just replace it. It's going random based on what's underneath it. So this is a really cool looking like glitchy plane that you know it got for for nothing. Like it's really, really easy to do. If you try to do this with a texture, you'd have to UV it, you know, blah, blah, blah. And you might not get even application of this texture. Like this is just 100%, as you can see, it's 100% based on where these vertices are. So your topology and your ability to color on this is going to be based on the mesh itself. If you wanted to do something that looked like pixel art, here, let me see. I'm just going to delete these. I'm just going to grab tablet, and if you go into the loop tool, select this guy, go to vertices, and just draw a shape. Now go to adjust value, and or whatever. You can make it brighter. Brighter's probably cooler. Now, this is when it's applied on a vert level. It looks like it's cheap. I mean, it looks like a video game. You can see that every vertex is making these color choices, and it looks familiar. Like the way that this falls off here, to me, when I see that, it just instantly, not necessarily bad. Sometimes it's a really cool aesthetic choice, but it looks cheap. And so for me, I like to make things facetized, which means that I'm coloring it on the faces instead of the vertices. And the reason for that is you don't get these triangular tessellated color choices. It's flat. You used to have to do that by hand. You used to have to go in and select faces and make sure that you're applying those random components to the faces and not to the vertices. But there's a feature in here that they added a few years ago that called facetize. If you click that, it's going to take each face and calculate what that color value is and apply a flat color to that face based on that information. So you get this. I personally think this is cooler, but obviously you can do a lot of cool stuff with the other method. Okay, so I'm going to create another sphere. And then apply color. And this time I'm going to leave it flat. So this flat color, I want to have real-time ambient occlusion. So when I get this closer to this surface, you'll see a shadow that gets bigger because it's calculated based on distance. So if you go to your that's the basics of coloring. I'm gonna move on now to viewport 2.0 stuff. I can't think of anything off the top of my head that I didn't show you in here that you don't know how to do. What's cool about the plugin is all of this stuff is it's possible to do all of it if you're just picking this stuff with Maya's default coloring tool, which is right here, Paint Vertex Color Tool, and Apply Color. But they just suck. Like you can't really do anything with them. It's like this is how much I can do with it. You're baking ambient occlusion and all that is just, I don't think it's even possible. If it is, it takes a while. It takes a few steps. It's really difficult. This coloring method allows you to just kind of push and pull stuff around really quickly. If you have a complicated scene, you could grab multiple attributes within the scene, or objects, and just adjust their values. And to me, it's way more intuitive than having a mess of shaders that you're trying to apply to everything. So now that you have that, like let's say you have this beautiful scene here. This is my film. I want to render it. This is where you run into some issues for me, and for a lot of people. If I see something that has aliasing, or that's aliased, I instantly notice it, and it sort of bothers me, even if it's supposed to be a low poly thing. And it's because it's sort of a lazy thing. So I just turned out the grid. This is our beautiful film. You can see if, I don't know, I gotta find, can you guys see the edges of this clearly? There's like, there's little stair stepping that's happening. Like, it's got this like jaggedness to it. So like if I wanted that, I'm so obsessive that I would just model it myself. Like, I would come up with a way to do it in a way that I have control over it. Or at least I'd want to change it. I want to make it more obvious. When it's just a little bit there, it's like, did you do that on purpose? Like it doesn't look intentional to me. So that's the first thing I'm going to get rid of. in viewport 2.0, right here in renderer, you have settings. Go to the option box. Right here, you have a tab for anti-aliasing, and you can turn on line and multi-sample anti-aliasing. Once you actually activate the viewport 2.0, it'll give you an option for changing the sample count amount. I think Andrew may have showed you some of this stuff before I got here. Possibly, it looked like it was open, but I'm not sure. So I'll just go over it again. So I turn it on by clicking here. And again, you can do this to any scene just to make it look better while you're working on it. You don't have to think of it as something to render your final film. So this has a multi-sample anti-aliasing count of 8. For HD films, which is what we're doing for our productions, this is all you need. You could zoom in on any image and see that it's not perfectly anti-aliased, but we're working in HD, which, believe it or not, is not very high as a resolution. So you're going to see that on your TV too if you get close enough to it. It's not a problem to have your sample count at 8. This is a really good value in my opinion. You'll notice that the colors changed when I turned it on. That's because of Maya's insane linear workflow. It's doing a gamma correction when you have it off, and when you turn it on, turn viewport 2.0 on, it's no longer applying a gamma correction to your scene. So in order to fix that, just enable gamma correction here, and you'll get a value. I'm going to switch back and forth. That is a little bit lighter than what you had. There's no exact science to gamma correction in this case. It's taste. And so what I do is I put this value somewhere around 1.7. But you can really do whatever you want. If you bring it down here, it's going to be really saturated. Put it over a different color background. After that, we'll do what I set out to do in the first place, which is apply screen space ambient occlusion to it. You enable this tab to turn it on. And you'll see that when I bring this object closer, you get this little shadow right here. It's subtle, but you'll see when I turn it on and off how much different it looks. And then when I show you other stuff later, I'm going to turn ambient occlusion on and off with that stuff, and you'll see how dramatically better it looks with it. Like I was saying about Pocoyo, that show is super appealing, and it's just flat color and ambient occlusion. That's pretty much all it is. I'm sure they do lots of other fancy things because it's, you know, a big production, but when you look at it, that's what you're mostly seeing. I mean, that's what the show feels like. Now, if we go back, just to remind you guys of how much different this looks, this is Maya's default lighting. So like, this is what you normally would be working on. And I feel like I can't even tell what I'm looking at. You know, I don't feel like I'm looking at the final film. By hitting 7, looks for lights, finds no lights, and then viewport 2.0 cleans everything up and makes it nice. So you could model in here if you wanted to. I don't, just because it is a little glitchy. You'll get some like weird artifacting and glitches sometimes when you're working in viewport 2.0, but I do animate in here. I heard a rumor that the next version of Maya, 2015, is not going to have a regular viewport, that it's only going to be viewport 2.0. That's what I heard. I don't know if it's true. It would make a lot of sense to me. Let me see what else I was going to talk about. Okay, yeah. So the next thing is like that I wrote anyway, is it does have motion blur. So if I like put a key on this guy and then set him over here and animated it moving across the screen. And then I go into my viewport 2.0 settings. You can activate motion blur. And you'll see it used to be in the other version of in 2013 and earlier, it calculated motion blur based on whatever was happening in your scene, including your camera move. So if you were in perspective going like this, it would motion blur your perspective, and I thought that was cool, but it was really annoying at the same time. Like, you could do some cool stuff with it. that, glitchy stuff. But I just wouldn't recommend it. Like, this is another thing I said to the other class, and Andrew agreed that if you're gonna do a nice motion blur pass, this isn't the way to do it. But if you want to mess around with this, you could see what it does for you, and it doesn't seem to be doing much. Let's see. There it is. It's pretty cool. And I think you could even, so like I'm even moving the, okay, so it doesn't calculate it when you're moving the camera anymore. It used to do that and it would be really messy and crazy. And that was cool. You could even record it. Not only does it to a steady camera, I just want to, for my own sake, I just want to test what happens if I animate the camera. This might make me really dizzy. Let's see. Okay, so it does calculate it if the camera has keys, but you can see that it's really glitchy, like it's doing some weird stuff. If you're gonna animate, like that frame is crazy. Uh, if you're gonna animate with motion blur, if you want motion blur on your film, the way to go is to render a vector pass. And we have a plugin here in After Effects called Real Smart Motion Blur, and you can do your motion blur there, and it's gonna look a lot better than this. But if you want to mess with it, you can. I think I did a 48-hour film like a couple years ago where I used it, but I was intentionally abusing it and using it in like weird ways. What's that? Yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. I think that might do it. Let me see. So, I mean, I have a lot of time. I could do a couple of things. I was thinking about showing you guys how to do matte passes, but that's kind of advanced. I don't know if that's something that would be interesting or not. One of the ways that I use Viewport 2.0 that is really efficient is if you want to separate something out in After Effects and adjust its value in Maya. I don't know if that's something that you guys would want to do. It's like I said, it's kind of advanced. Or I could just stop with this part of the lecture and just start showing you some of the other stuff that I've done. What do you guys think? Anybody have an opinion? I'll show you guys matte passes, but it might be a little bit advanced. So maybe just follow along. I don't know. This might be really cool to somebody, so I think it's worth showing because this really saved me a ton of time and helped me out a ton with my workflow. So this is like okay. So in order to do this, I'm going to duplicate this object, and then I'm going to adjust its value or whatever its color. Okay. So now this is our little scene. Let's say I have a beautiful render of this happening. I really like it, but I want this to be blue. I'm going to show you how to do that without changing anything in the scene. It's really easy. So there's vertex color layers, so where you can organize this if you want. But I'm just going to do it in a destructive way because it's faster. But you can organize this with layers that you turn on and off in vertex layers. Like, so if you are interested in doing this, just like write down that phrase, vertex layers. There's also layers in tools here, and you can mess with that. But I usually, for my own stuff too, I usually just do it in a destructive way and I don't save the scene. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go get my globals right. We want this to be HD, so I go to my common tab and I make it HD, 1920 1080. So now when I click here, this is my composition. So we want our play blast to render this, but we don't want it to render the gate. So I'm going to turn off, oh, HUD's already turned off, and then I turn off the film gate. Now, I don't know for sure that this is going to work perfectly, so let's give it a shot. If I go into my options here, we'll do a QuickTime. Usually you guys are probably used to working with image sequences out of Maya if you do use Maya, because that's really all it can do. But if you're working with Playblast, you can just do, a lossless MOV file, and then you're working with MOVs in After Effects. I actually like using image sequences in general, but just to save time, I'm going to make it in H.264 QuickTime with 100% quality from render settings. So I want it to render this composition because this is what I've been like. Imagine that you're making this film, you've been setting your camera up for a while, and you're really careful about your compositions. You don't want your Playblast to render an arbitrary composition based on the viewport. That's really annoying. And I spent a really long time trying to figure out how to do this because I didn't have any help. I didn't even know if it was possible to get it to perfectly pixel for pixel match mental ray passes. So when you render a mental ray pass, it's going to look at this viewport and it's going to take the film gate and it's going to render within that. So you'll get the edge of this ball cut off and that sort of thing. When you composite this with a Playblast, if the Playblast isn't registered properly, it won't match up. You won't be able to composite lighting with your flat color. So I could take really complicated lighting in Mental Ray and composite it on top of this. That's what I did with my last film. I decided that I don't like lighting. I just don't like how it looks usually for cartoony stuff. So I'm just doing it all by hand this year, and I'm only rendering flat stuff. But if you did want to composite with some sort of mental ray process that's more expensive, you don't have to worry about, oh, well, I'm doing vertex colors, so I can't have shadows. Oh, I didn't show you guys how to do shadows. I'll just throw that in really quick. If I create a light, directional light, and then I go to shading, lighting, turn on shadows, and then I go to the attribute editor for the light, and I enable depth map shadows, crank the resolution up, and that'll calculate in real time, which is pretty cool. I don't really like viewport shadows. I think they look cheap. You can see that they're not anti-aliased. So yeah, I wonder, you might be able to mess with the depth map values, like the filter size, to get something a little nicer. I don't know. I haven't really messed with that very much. If I'm gonna do lighting, I do it in Mental Ray or V-Ray. Like if you're gonna do nice lighting, I don't see any reason why you'd want to do it in the viewport. Okay, so I'm gonna play blast this. Okay, so this might surprise me in the way that it goes down. I don't know. I'm working with a pretty small window here, and the way that 2013 Maya did its play blast is it used the screen to figure out what size it should be. So you literally couldn't render anything bigger than your screen's resolution, and you had to get rid of all the sidebars and everything and make it really big to render HD. And it was really tricky. It was hard to get the right composition and everything. I, from tests, found that 2014 just doesn't do that. It just works. Like you render it, and it's almost like they just fixed a bunch of stuff. Yeah, if you do from render settings, it should take this small image and just make it HD. It's almost like it's rendering it off screen or something. I don't really understand it, so we'll see how this goes. I'm making it H.264, 100% quality from render settings, scale of 1. Frame padding doesn't matter because we're making an MOV. Saved a file. I'm going to make it on my desktop. So you don't have to send this to your images folder like you normally would with a production and be like, oh, where is that again? With this workflow, Maya folder structure doesn't really matter. Well, that's kind of cool. Like I only ever have to send myself one file. It's just the Maya file, and that's pretty nice. Screen flow. Okay. Test. Blah, blah, blah. Underscore. Okay, so this is going to be the color pass. Okay, so I'm going to play blast this. We'll see if this is HD. I hope it is. If not, there's ways to get it. Yeah, look. It's bigger than the actual screen. So there, we got this. Now if we hop into After Effects and import that from the desktop. Let's see. Yep, 1920 1080. It's got the right frame rate. Everything came in good. So that's awesome. That means as long as you put in those settings that I showed you with the Play Blast, you will be able to composite this with mental ray lighting stuff. Just to double check, because I've had so many problems with this before, I'm going to do a quick image. I'll do it at frame 1. Go File, Save Image, Desktop. We'll call it Mental Ray Lighting. If I can type. And now if we go into After Effects, this should match up on top of it. I hope it does. Oh, I saved it as an ALS. I don't even know what an ALS is. Is that just, I think it might just be only recognizable in Maya. Or alias pics? I'm not familiar with that. Okay. So it looks like there are some bleeding pixels right here. That's probably a pre-multiplication issue. And that's like a whole can of worms in and of itself, but you can find resources for fixing that online. If I change the opacity of it, you can see that it matches up. So in this way, you could composite mental ray stuff with play blasting. And that's way easier than it was last year. It used to be much more complicated to get that to work. Okay, so now that I've got this, I told you my goal was to take this this ball and make it a different color. Since like let's say this other ball wasn't here, I put this one here so it would go behind it, and that makes it way more complicated because if I wanted to just like change the color of it, I could just render an alpha channel pass of that ball as a different color and drop it on the scene. Now it's a different color. But since it goes behind that, if I did that, at this point, we'd get that different colored ball overlapping this one, so it wouldn't make any sense. So with matte passes, you can take any object deep within the scene, a leaf way back in the back corner. What you do is you render it white. You render everything else in the scene black. So as those black objects pass over the scene, you get a nice luma matte alpha channel of that object as it's silhouetted within the scene. And that being able to extract that object out with a luma matte allows you to adjust it in any way that you want. The way that you do that, oh, I thought that was Maya. I was like really confused. Is you just color it by hand that way. So I'm going to make my background black with option B. I'm going to make these objects black, and then I'm going to make this object white. You can see how quick and easy that was to do. Normally you'd have to go make a render layer, change the surface shader and stuff. And since it's so simple and so quick, I don't save this. I just make a matte pass, and then if it works, it works. And then I just don't save that, and I still have my colored version as the previous version, you know? It's just a quick play blast, quick pass. So I'm going to do the same exact method, except I'm going to name it differently. I'm going to name it matte. Do you guys use mats at all? Like, yeah, in After Effects? I didn't start using them until it was a while before I started using it because I think they're really relevant for CG. You can use them for 2D too, but oh, it looks like it didn't go behind that. That looks totally different for some reason. Oh, did I color the wrong one? Did anybody see what I did wrong? Okay, this is not. I must have lowered the alpha somehow. So that was transparent for some reason. That's my bad. Cool. I'm gonna play blast the same thing and replace it. Cool. So in After Effects, we want to make luma mat of that object, extract out the original color pass, and then adjust it so we can make it whatever color we want. So I'll import that. I'm going to put it in here. Now I'm going to duplicate this. If anybody wants me to repeat any of these steps, like, let me know. I'm going to pre-comp these together. And then when I jump into this pre-comp, I want the, I never remember which one's which, but there's this track map box. If it's not there, go to columns and turn it on. I don't remember which one it is. Probably, yeah, modes. Right click, columns, modes. And then make it an alpha or a luma mat. Luma mat takes and stencils out everything in the image based on how dark or light it is. And that's why I made it black and white, because I want this object that's white to be an alpha channeled object that I can adjust. So I'm going to make a luma mat, or maybe a reverse one. I don't remember which one's supposed to be on top. This might take a second. Okay, so it is supposed to be this way. You want this one to be visible. Oh, my background's green. I do that a lot just because like I make it, my background's a special effects green, so it's really easy to see what I'm messing with. I'll make it red just so we can see it worked. So now we have this. We have this object. It's been separated from the rest of the scene. Now that I have this pre-comp object, I drop it on top of the other one. Now the reason I duplicated this layer, the color layer, here I'll double click it. The reason I duplicated this one is instead of just making it a matte, is now I have the exact color that I had. And so what I forgot to do to make this even more complicated is instead of making this a flat green like it is, I could have made it checkerboard or really complicated lighting thing on it. And since I'm using the footage to stencil it out, I'll have that information still. So I could add it on top of itself as a light layer. I could make it an add layer. This is a really good way to fake lighting in your scene. If you just render out a plane and then blur it in After Effects and apply that as light. Looks pretty cool. Okay. So now that I have that, I can make it blue. I'm just gonna go effect, hue saturation. I mean, at this point, it's probably pretty obvious. You can do whatever you want with it. Color correction. And it's gonna go through the entire thing. Cool. That actually wasn't too bad. I thought that was gonna be like much more complicated. Does everybody feel like, I mean, anybody have any questions about it? It's pretty simple. The hardest part is probably just remembering the order of putting in the luma mat. Oh, I wrote down here to mention that it does not work with real-time motion blur. So if you do decide to mess around with real-time motion blur, you can't do these luma mats because the pixels aren't accurate enough in the blur. I tried doing it and it just didn't work. So yeah, but that's the lecture. That's everything. Yeah, that's it. I'm gonna stop this little recording. And thanks, guys.